Hello everyone, this is my wife's first C exercise. She just wrote a program called Mario.c, and today we're going to refactor that code. So we're going to take it and move it around to make it a bit nicer if we can. All right, first let's see what does this code do. All right, I'm going to compile the code using make. Then I'm using ampersand to start another comment on the same line. And what I want to do is after I make the code, I want to run it like this. Okay, so I'm going to make it and then I'm going to run it immediately. All right, the code is prompting me to enter a height. All right, so let's say 7. And it's printing this pyramid. Okay, so this pyramid will be part of a Mario game later. All right, what we want to do is we want to modify it, but first I'm going to make a copy of the file because I do not want to modify the original. All right, so I'm going to copy mario.c and I'm going to name the new file Mario solution.c. There's already a Mario solution I did earlier. I'm going to overwrite it. Okay, and then I'm going to use the code command to open Mario solution like this. All right, I can close these tabs. I don't need them anymore. Here we have exactly the same code as before, except it's in a new file. And I'm going to make it, so make Mario solution, and I'm going to run it. All right, present our height, let's say 3. And here's our pyramid. All right, let's look at the code. Here we have a first block that's basically just prompting a height, which is the first line you see on the output. And it will keep prompting until h is between 1 and 8. Okay, so here you can see if h is less than 1, prompt again. If h is more than 8, prompt again. Okay, the only way we stop prompting is if it's between 1 and 8. All right, let me remove the comments here because it makes it a bit easier for me to read the code when there's no comments. Then we have a for loop which will go over the rows, start from row 0 up to row h. So let's say if I give 7, then it will go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it will stop. Okay, because h is 7 and we have to be strictly less than 7. And here we have a nested for loop which will print a number of spaces, then another for loop to print the hash marks. One print for the 2 spaces in the middle, and another for loops for the remaining hash marks or hashtags, whichever. All right, let's take this function, this for loop here, and put it in a function. So I'm going to create a function void. Void meaning I don't want to return anything. I don't need to return an int or a string. And I'm going to call this function print spaces like this. I'm going to take that for loop. I'm going to put it in there. Oh, put it in there with some nice indentation like this. All right, and here where I had the for loop initially, I'm going to call the print spaces instead. Okay. If I run that code, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because I have a bunch of undeclared variable inside the print space function. Here it says use of undeclared identifier h, and it shows me line 5 at that column here. So if I go line 5 here, I can see I have h here, and within that block I haven't declared h anywhere. So the compiler doesn't know where to get the value from. What I'm going to do is the number of times I want to repeat the loop, I'm going to extract it to a variable called n. Okay, and here I'm going to create int n equals to this. Now I can't run that code. I still have the same error that h doesn't exist and the row doesn't exist. But at least I know that this code will work if I find a way that I can provide this value n. And I'm going to provide it to the function through an argument. So I'm going to put n in here, which means that this value n will be filled by the calling code, and the calling code is here. Okay, so here I can put my variable n, and I can print the spaces for n like this. Now if I run the code, it works. I can print height 5, and it's printing me a nice pyramid. Now I don't have to use a variable here if I don't want to. Okay, I can just take the formula and put it inside the function call directly, and this will work just as well. Okay. Since I'm running this Mario executable a lot, I don't want to have to enter the height every time. So here I'm going to just set a default height of 5 and comment out the rest of the code, which just runs the code and it immediately prints the pyramid without prompting me. So I can test a lot faster. All right, so I've put this base printing out of the loop here, and I'm just going to do the same thing with the hashtags here. Okay, so I'm gonna, well, first I'm going to create the function void print hash tags, and I'm gonna take the 4 here, and I'm gonna paste it there. Okay, and if I were to run that, oh sorry, of course I just removed the 4. I need to call the print hashtags here like this, right? So first I print the space, then I print the hashtags. If I were to call that code, I will get exactly the same kind of error as before, telling me use of undeclared identifier row, because this variable row here I haven't declared in the function. So I do the same thing as before. I call it n, put n here, and here I call with the proper n value. If I run the code one more time, so let's just clear the screen, call the code. Here I have a nice pyramid. Once I have this print hashtag function, I can use it to replace the second loop, because these two loops were exactly the same. So I can remove it here, I can print it here. And here you see I have a much terser, cleaner looking code, which still works. I'm still having a pyramid with 5 hashtags on each side. Actually, if you look at the code here, this printf is printing 2 spaces, right? So just for the sake of consistency, it's not really useful, but it increases symmetry. I can do print spaces and just print 2 spaces, right? If I run that, it still works. And that's nice, because I have all my defined functions here. And because these functions have a lot of similarities in the way that they're implemented, my goal now is to try and merge them together. Okay, and when you want to merge 2 functions together, the process is to do a small change that will make them look a little bit more alike, and then another small change, and then another small change. So if I look at the code here, I can see that here I have less than or equal, and here I have strictly less than. So I need to find a way that I can change that to make them more similar. Well, if first it's called column, right? Or let me just call it C. Okay, no spelling mistakes when it's only one letter. So if it's less or equal to n, the very last value it will take is n. Okay, n is the biggest value that can be less or equal to n, which means that it will be strictly less than n plus 1. Okay, and that's already a bit more similar, because I have strictly less than and here strictly less than. Now this plus 1 here is annoying me, okay? So I want to get it out of there. What I can do is I can create another variable, okay? So let's say here I can use m. Here I can do int n is equal to m plus 1. And here I can just have n. Okay, and when I do that, I can see that these loops are very similar now. I can make them more similar. That's just a cosmetic change, the name of variables. What matters is the structure of the code, how these variables interact with each other. But you see now they're a lot more similar, these loops. But how do I get rid of this? How do I get rid of this temporary m+1 variable? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this +1 and I'm going to extract it out of the function. So in a way, I want to remove it from there and just put it there, right? But that doesn't work. That's not legal code. I have to pull it out one more step. So I'm going to pull it out all the way to the calling code here. And I'm going to row +1 and row +1. And that will work, right? So I had n+1 here. I'm removing the +1 from here, and I'm putting it there instead. Okay. Oh, and now that I've done this, that was just for explanation, this temporary m variable. I can just go directly from n here to n here. If I run the code again, you can see that I have exactly the same output as before, meaning it does the same thing. So I'm almost done. I just need to get rid of that difference here. And I can do that with a variable. I can do char, no. Oh, sorry, it's a string. So I can do string s is equal to space. And here I can printf the s, right? And here I can do string s is equal to hashtag, and I can print the s. And now I see that I have exactly the same code. All the variables are named the same, they all operate the same. So I will be able to merge these two loops into one later on, but first I have to solve an issue. If you run that code, there's a bug, and there's a very subtle bug that's not quite obvious at first. It says printf with variable s, and here actually it's giving me the solution. It says treat the string as an argument to avoid this. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, it means that here I have to use a format and pass s as a argument instead. Okay, because printf is a print format. If I do that, it fixes this error. Let me clear the screen, run the code again, and I have my nice pyramid here. All right. So I have two functions. They have exactly the same code, except for one variable that has a different value. And that's exactly the use case for a function argument. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass that value as argument to the function here. Okay. And when I call the print space function, I'm going to call it with the second argument s here. And here I have print space in one. I'm going to call it with s here too. Okay, if I run that code, everything works as expected. Now I don't really have to create the variable s and then pass it here. I can just directly pass it like this, and directly pass the string like this too. Okay, and this will work. And I'll do the same thing with print hashtags. So I'm going to take s as an argument. I'm going to remove that variable, and in the print hashtags, I will directly pass the string here. Okay, and if I run the code, I still get my nice pyramid. Let's try and align all of this to understand a bit better how it works. It's good to take the time to make your programs readable. It's okay. 1 minute spending formatting everything is time well spent. Alright, so here it's printing spaces with the space string and printing hashtags with the hashtag string. But these functions, print space and print hashtags, first, now they're exactly identical. And second, they don't have proper names anymore because print spaces is actually printing anything that I pass in the string s. Okay, so I'm going to call it print many times. And since it's the same as this function, I'm going to remove this other function here. And I'm just going to call one function, print many times, print many times, print many times, with either a space or a hashtag as argument. And because the code will be a little bit more readable if I put the string first. I'm going to swap the arguments. So I'm going to put the space first here, and then the hashtag first here, and the hashtag first here, right? And now I'm going to align my second argument, which is how many times I want to print the string. And because I've swapped the arguments here, I also have to swap them here. So I'm taking the n, first the string, and then the number. All right, let's compile and run the code. Still works. And that's it. We've condensed the code, we've removed a few for loops, put them into a more generic function that can print a string many times, and call that function to first print the spaces h minus row minus one time, and then the hashtag row plus one time, then two spaces, and then another hashtag row plus one time.